My name is Patsy, and at 29 years old, they stole my college fund to send my sister to grad school, said I wasn't the academic type anyway. I didn't argue, I just waited. Then I handed them this. My sister started screaming. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from, before she even finished reading it. The banner was the first sign this wasn't going to be a normal party. It stretched across the entire living room wall. Congratulations, Emily, you're going to change the world. In glittery gold letters, with balloons and flowers and printed programs, like it was a wedding and not a graduation party. I walked in and got maybe half a nod from my mom, then she immediately told me to stay near the back so the photographer can get clean shots of the family. Translation: You're not part of the show. Don't mess it up. My sister Emily was in the middle of it all, smiling, like she was the guest of honor at her own coronation. Everyone was fawning over her, telling her how amazing she was, asking about her future plans, the usual. I just stood there, pretending to sip the champagne they only brought out for special occasions. I guess this counted. You're not really dressed for something like this, my mom said when she finally made eye contact, but thanks for coming. I smiled. Wouldn't miss it. Because I really wouldn't. I had plans. Emily and I are only a few years apart, but we might as well have grown up in different households. She got piano lessons, tutoring, birthday parties with rented ponies. I got whatever was left over, usually hand-me-downs, sometimes just the "be grateful you have a roof over your head" speech. When she wanted to go to college, our parents threw her a party and bought her a new laptop. When I asked about college, I was told, "Let's be honest, honey, you've never really been the academic type." And that was that. No money, no support, not even a community college brochure, just the expectation that I'd get a job and stay out of the way. So I did. For years, I worked, paid rent, helped when they asked, and watched them pour every ounce of love, money, and attention into Emily, like she was their only child. But I kept my mouth shut, smiled when I had to, nodded when they said things like, "Emily's just always been driven. You've always been so independent. It's just easier to support her goals right now." Sure, easier for who? At the party, I was treated like background noise, asked to carry drinks, move chairs, help with setup, the usual. "You don't mind, do you?" my mom asked while handing me a tray. "Emily would help if she weren't busy greeting people." She said it like Emily was running for office. I did what they asked, smiled through it all, and waited, because my turn was coming. I brought someone with me to the party, a man in his 40s, clean suit, quiet, polite. When people asked who he was, I said, "Just a friend." No one asked more than that. Why would they? I wasn't the main character. I was the side quest. The speeches started after dessert. My dad tapped his glass and stood up. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our incredible daughter," he said. "Emily's worked so hard. She's overcome every obstacle, and we're just so proud to have supported her journey through school and into grad school." Everyone clapped. Emily smiled like she was about to cry, and I stood up. "I just want to say something quick," I said, loud enough for the room to go quiet. People turned to look at me. My parents looked nervous. Emily just looked annoyed. "I brought something for you," I said, walking toward them with a white envelope in my hand. "It's not much, just some paperwork. Thought you might want to take a look." I handed it to my dad. He opened it, smiled like it was a joke, then stopped smiling. My mom leaned in to see. Her expression changed fast. Tight jaw, eyes flicking across the page, like she was hoping the words would rearrange themselves. Emily laughed. "What is it, some passive-aggressive poem?" She reached for the second page and scanned it. She didn't even finish reading it before she shouted, "What the hell is this?" And that's where I'll stop, because the screaming, that was just the beginning. When I was 6, I asked my mom why there were no baby pictures of me in the house. She told me the box with all my early photos got ruined in a flood. I didn't question it. I was 6. I was more worried about whether I could eat Pop-Tarts for dinner. But even then, something about it felt weird, especially since there were hundreds of photos of my sister Emily, labeled, sorted, dated. One even had a scrapbook titled Emily's Magical First Year. Weirdly, no magical scrapbooks of mine survived the flood, but I let it go. That's what I did back then. Let things go, let them say what they wanted, and just sort of accepted it. Because asking questions never led anywhere good, and because deep down I didn't want the answer. My childhood was fine, you know. If fine means getting grounded for things your sister did, being left out of every big family event, and hearing your own parents refer to you as the quiet one who keeps to herself, like you were a stranger renting the spare room. Emily got everything, not just stuff, though. Yeah, she got all the stuff. She got attention, support, encouragement. She got a whole curated childhood where she was the star of the show, and I was there in the corner, out of frame, probably holding her coat. She was the type of kid who got praised for volunteering at an animal shelter once. I was the type who got grounded for not raking the leaves fast enough. At first I thought maybe it was me. Maybe I wasn't that smart. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I was just the unlucky sibling who happened to fall short next to a natural-born overachiever. But you can only swallow that for so long before it starts to feel like poison, especially when you realize the rules are different depending on whose name is at the top of the banner. When I was 17, I asked if I could apply to college. College isn't for everyone, my dad said, the way people say the clown isn't real to a scared toddler. My mom followed it up with a tight smile. You've always been more hands-on. We figured you'd want to work right away. And that was that. No applications, no tours, no help. Meanwhile, Emily was getting flown out for university interviews, with our parents treating her like the first woman to land on Mars. But again, I let it go, got a job, paid bills, lived cheap, laughed when they called me so responsible, like it wasn't just survival. Then came the moment that flipped everything. It started with mail. Boring, right? Except one envelope caught my eye. It wasn't addressed to me, but it had my name on the return address. Strange. So I opened it. Yes, I know, technically not mine, but when someone sends mail using your name, I think it becomes your business. Inside was a document that made my stomach drop. I won't say what it was. Not yet. Let's just say it wasn't something I was ever meant to see. It raised a lot of questions, and this time I didn't swallow them. I started digging, carefully, quietly. I requested some old paperwork, visited some offices, called in a few favors, pretended I was working on a personal finance project. Nobody asks follow-up questions when you say financial literacy, and the deeper I went, the uglier it got. Turns out there were things about my life I'd never been told, big things, things that made certain childhood memories feel like little landmines I'd just been stepping over without knowing. I found documents, signatures, transactions, names I hadn't heard in years, and suddenly the missing baby photos made a lot more sense. So did the way my parents always acted, like they were doing me a favor by letting me exist under their roof. So did the way Emily looked at me, like she was the heir to something, and I was just background noise. Turns out I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the imbalance, the favoritism, the fact that I was always on the outside of a family I thought I was part of. There was a reason I hired someone quietly, an expert. Let's just call him David. David wore suits that didn't wrinkle, carried a leather briefcase, and spoke like every word was being typed directly into a legal document. I didn't tell anyone about him. I told my parents I was working extra shifts, told Emily I was still trying to figure things out. Meanwhile, David and I met weekly, reviewed everything, built a file thick enough to drop on a desk and get a satisfying thud. One day I asked him if what I had was enough. He didn't even blink. It's not just enough, he said. It's devastating. From that point on, I waited for the right time, the right moment, the perfect stage. And then the invitation came. Emily's grad party, a night to remember. Oh, it would be. Not for the reason they expected, but definitely unforgettable. You'd think I'd feel bitter or angry or hurt. And yeah, I did, for a long time. But at a certain point, it stopped feeling like pain and started feeling like clarity. This wasn't just about money. It was about the way they talked about me, like I was a disappointment, when I was the one who held everything together. It was about how they said I wasn't the academic type, while using every resource they had to lift someone else up, and not even bothering to look back at me. It was about how they always made me feel lucky to get scraps, while they stole the whole meal. So no, I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to throw a tantrum in front of the cake table. I was just going to hand them the truth in a nice, clean envelope in front of everyone and let them ruin the party themselves. Emily's scream cut through the room like a fire alarm. She was holding the second page now, reading faster, like she was hoping she'd misunderstood the first one. Spoiler, she hadn't. My dad stood frozen with the envelope still in his hand. My mom leaned over, trying to read it too, but I could tell by the way her face drained that she'd already seen enough. The room had gone silent, champagne glasses half raised, forks in midair. One of the neighbors was still chewing a bacon-wrapped date, clearly regretting not swallowing sooner. "Is this some kind of joke?" Emily said, her voice rising. "Where did you even get this mail?" I said, "Weird thing about paperwork. It just shows up when people forget to hide it properly." She looked at my mom. "You told me everything was fine." My mom didn't answer. She just stared at the page, like she was willing it to catch fire. My dad finally spoke. "We need to talk about this privately." "No," I said calmly. "See, we've done private for years. This time we're doing it with witnesses." I looked around the room. "You all remember how they used to say I wasn't the academic type? Turns out I was just too expensive to educate. After they blew through the money that was never theirs to begin with. And there it was, the moment. The truth started leaking through the cracks. Let's rewind a little. The money they used to send Emily to school, that wasn't just any college fund. It was mine, left to me by people I never got the chance to know, my real parents. See, I wasn't just adopted, I was absorbed, pulled into this family like a side character they forgot to write a backstory for. When I was a baby, my biological parents died in a car crash. My aunt and uncle, now known as Mom and Dad, took me in. They were appointed my legal guardians, which came with some responsibility. One of those responsibilities was managing a rather large inheritance. The terms were clear. The money was to be used for me, to provide a good life, education, and stability. But apparently in their minds, for me translated to for Emily. Because that's exactly where it all went. They drained my inheritance slowly, like people siphoning gas out of someone else's car. First, it was private school tuition for Emily, then her undergrad, then the surprise car for her 16th birthday that apparently counted as a transportation expense. Meanwhile, I was getting lectures about financial responsibility because I asked for a used laptop to apply for jobs. The most insulting part? They acted like they were sacrificing for her. Every time someone asked how they afforded everything, it was a lot of budgeting, or, "We just do what we can for our daughter." Except she wasn't their only daughter. Not really. And they never once mentioned that. The reason she had everything was because they were robbing their other kid blind. Emily was still flipping through the pages at the party, her hands shaking. "This isn't fair," she said. "You can't just show up and ruin my party like this. You're just bitter." "Sure," I said. "Let's go with that. I'm bitter. That's why my name's on every single one of those accounts. That's why the lawyer I brought with me spent 3 months verifying every transaction. That's why the property you live in, paid for by a fund that was only supposed to be used for me." She stared at me like she didn't believe it, but we both knew she did. She had known for years. There were documents with her signature, transfer approvals, joint applications. She didn't just benefit, she helped cover it up. My mom finally spoke. Her voice was tight, fake calm. "We were trying to do what was best for the family." "Right," I said, "and I'm sure it just slipped your mind that the trust didn't belong to the family. It belonged to me." "We didn't think you'd understand," she snapped. "You were young, and you didn't seem like you wanted to go to college anyway." I almost laughed. "Yeah, no, I totally just loved working double shifts while watching Emily fly off to academic conferences in cities I couldn't afford to pronounce." My dad tried to take control. "This is still a private matter. It's between us." "Nope," I said. "It stopped being private when you spent 18 years telling everyone I was lazy while living off money meant for me." And the worst part? They still thought they could talk their way out of it. My dad started pacing, mumbling about misunderstandings. My mom looked at my lawyer like he was a party crasher. Emily went full meltdown. "I'm not giving up my apartment," she said, clutching her phone like she was about to call the president. "You can't do this." You might want to check the paperwork, my lawyer said calmly. The apartment was purchased outright, using a fund that legally belonged to your sister. You've been living in stolen property for 2 years. Someone at the back gasped. I think it was Grandma. I turned to the crowd. They've been spending my money since I was a baby. Told me I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve more, all while living off what my real parents left for me. No one said a word, and that's when I explained what happens next. The court case had already been filed. The evidence was overwhelming. The judgment, everything bought with my inheritance would be returned. The house, the apartment, the accounts. And because the value had dropped over the years and inflation had done its thing, they'd owe me more than they could afford. The court granted me control of the assets. My childhood home, now mine, Emily's condo, transferred. And since the remaining balance couldn't be paid in full, the rest would come out of their salaries for years. My dad, near retirement? Good luck. My mom, same boat. Emily? Well, turns out that fancy degree she used my money to get came with a decent job. She'll be paying me back monthly until she's 40. She started crying right there in front of everyone. I didn't ask for any of this, she yelled. No, I said. You just took it anyway. The best part? I didn't even raise my voice. I didn't scream or throw things or storm out. I just stood there calm while they watched everything they built collapse around them. Because everything they built was mine to begin with. After the party exploded, somewhere between my sister screaming and my mom telling everyone to get out, I went home, to my house now. It still smelled like them. Same candles, same fake lemon air freshener from the hallway diffuser, same wall of family photos where I had never quite made the cut. By the end of the week, most of those photos were in a trash bag on the porch. I didn't want to erase the past. I just didn't want to keep pretending it looked the way they'd told me it did. The legal process moved fast. That tends to happen when the evidence is airtight and the defendants can't afford the kind of lawyer who charges $900 an hour just to breathe in your direction. The court reviewed the trust, the transactions, the property deeds, the unauthorized withdrawals, the forged signatures, every little lie, every big one too. And the ruling was exactly what David, the lawyer I brought to the party, said it would be. They owed me everything. I didn't ask for them to be ruined. I asked to be made whole. The judge agreed. They were ordered to hand over all assets paid for with my trust, which unfortunately for them was nearly everything. Their house, mine. Now Emily's condo, also mine. Every remaining cent that had been sitting in savings or investment accounts was seized and redirected. But here's the problem with stealing from someone's inheritance and blowing it on your favorite child for nearly 2 decades. You can't pay it back, not fully. So the court put together a repayment plan. The rest would be taken from their future earnings, monthly. My dad tried to argue he was about to retire. The judge didn't care. Emily cried and said she couldn't afford to live without her salary. The judge told her to start budgeting. They all appealed, of course, claimed it was unfair, punitive, emotionally damaging. Yeah, no kidding. Appeal denied. The fallout wasn't just legal. It was social, too. Everyone who was at that party, they talked. People who had always smiled politely at my parents stopped calling. Family friends started pulling away. No more brunch invites. No more subtle praise of Emily's drive. Even Grandma, who had once told me I needed to be more grateful, called to say she was sorry, that she never knew. I didn't say much, mostly because I didn't care. I wasn't doing this for sympathy. I didn't want pity. I didn't want to be the tragic underdog everyone rallied around too late. I just wanted what was mine, and maybe a little silence. Emily lasted 3 months in her apartment after the ruling. Then I sent the formal eviction notice. She called me sobbing, said she had nowhere else to go, that I was punishing her for something she didn't do alone. You're right, I told her. You didn't do it alone. You just signed the forms, cashed the checks, and said nothing for 18 years. She hung up. I heard she moved in with a friend from work for a while. Not sure where she is now. Not my problem. As for my parents, they moved into a rental in a not-so-great part of town. My dad tried picking up part-time work, but no one's really looking for an angry man in his 60s who yells about family betrayal during interviews. My mom started baking and selling custom cookies online. They're not bad, honestly. One of my coworkers bought a batch and brought them into the office without knowing. I didn't tell her where they came from. Let's just say they taste better when you know you're being paid back with every bite. It's been a few years now. I've rebuilt. I finished school on my terms, paid for with money that should have been mine all along. I started my own business, a small one, but it's mine. No one calls me just the quiet one anymore. The house is quieter now. No screaming, no staged family portraits, no lectures about being ungrateful. It's just me and the space I reclaimed. I turned my old bedroom, formerly known as the overflow storage closet, into an office. The laundry room Emily made me sleep in when I was 12. I knocked it down, opened the floor plan. Some ghosts aren't worth keeping around. The payments still come every month. They're not large, but they're consistent. Like little monthly reminders that lies have a cost, even the ones told by people who claim they did it for the family. And sure, sometimes I wonder if it was all too much. If showing up at the party with legal documents and a lawyer in a tailored suit was dramatic. If I could have handled it quieter, more maturely, with more grace. But then I remember all the birthdays I was forgotten, all the job applications I couldn't afford to send, all the late nights working double shifts while Emily was off taking yoga electives in France. I remember being told I wasn't smart enough, ambitious enough, good enough to deserve help, when the truth was I was just inconvenient. So no, I don't regret it. I didn't destroy them, I just told the truth. And the truth did what it always does when it's been buried too long. It exploded. Every now and then, I still get emails, short ones. Hope you're doing well. Can we talk? You don't have to be this way. I don't reply because I'm not being this way. I'm just finally living my life without having to ask them for permission. Anyway, that's how I got everything back. The house, the money, the truth. But I still ask myself sometimes, did I go too far? Or was that the only way they were ever going to hear me? What would you have done? Subscribe for more stories like this.